Welcome everybody, Pastor Randy Fry, Gower Christian Church, coming to you from Studio 2B, 2 Bravo, in the massive Gower Christian Church Media Campus. And this is 7 Minutes with the Savior. Thanks for joining me this morning. Learned something new about the technology I've been using just a minute ago, so sorry for a little bit of a delay, but glad to be on the air with you today. This Sunday I start preaching a 6-week series from Peter, 1 Peter, one of the letters that Peter wrote to churches in Asia Minor, right at the beginning of Nero's persecution of Christians. Nero, he's famous. You've heard that expression, fiddling while Rome burns. That came out of Nero's persecution. He supposedly set Rome on fire and then decided, in order to blame Christians for the troubles that Nero was experiencing because he was an incompetent leader, and he of course wanted it to burn, and so he did nothing. We get the expression fiddling while Rome burns from Nero's persecution of Christians. That's as far as I understand anyway. But in Peter's letter he's going to talk about hard trials that Christians in Asia Minor are facing because of persecution. And he's going to talk about a concept of being strangers here on earth. There's an old gospel hymn, "The world's not my home, I'm just a passing through." And one of my favorite theologians, actually two of them, William Willimon and Stanley Hauerwas, wrote a book called Resident Aliens. The idea that as Christians, we live in this culture, but we're not of the culture. Excuse me. And that's really something important for us to hear. Hard trials in Peter's day are different than the hard trials that we experience today as Christians. And we were talking last night at Bible study about, well, in what ways are Christians experiencing hard trials today, especially in America? We know that there's, in Muslim countries, we know that like in China, we know that in some African countries, that there's a lot of persecution of Christians, that those guys, those believers experience real persecution, and sometimes violent persecution. We don't experience Christianity that way here, but we do face hard trials, because if we are bought into the values of God's kingdom, it's an upside down kingdom. Our values as members of God's kingdom vary greatly from the values of the dominant culture, or the American contemporary culture. And when we stick to our principles and stick to our values, sometimes we are often in conflict with the values and perspectives of the culture. And let's be clear, that hasn't changed in 2,000 years. How the Christians in Asia Minor experienced hard trials and persecution, how Christians in the Middle Ages experienced persecution and hard trials, how Christians, in the Civil War and in the 19th century in America experienced persecution and hard trials. Every age, every generation, for folks who are true to the gospel, and to the values of the kingdom, they're going to face hard trials, just as we are. And so we may not be experiencing violent persecution here in America, but just understand that our allegiance to God's kingdom is going to put us at odds with the dominant culture a lot. And so there's going to be a certain amount of alienation. There's going to be a certain amount of discrediting. There's going to be times when adhering to Christian values is going to be costly, career-wise or relationship-wise, economically. And those are going to be our trials. The trial is always going to be, are we going to be willing to live by the values of the kingdom? And it's a challenging question for the church itself, because so often, in order to be relevant, or to be popular, or to attract people, we will borrow values and techniques from the culture around us to attract people. And you know what? Rather than working for the gospel, it ends up confusing people a lot. And so it's just a really challenge. Peter is going to be talking about living as strangers here on earth, and he's simply talking about our resident alien status, that we're citizens of the kingdom first, and often that's going to put us at odds with the culture. And he's going to be talking about hard trials and persecution, and we'll be exploring in what ways is that relevant, and what ways does that apply to our practice of faith in contemporary culture. So I hope you'll join me in person or online for this 6-part sermon series on 1 Peter. And we'll continue to explore these themes, but just understand that there is a costliness to us embracing the values of God's kingdom. Even, you know what, even in some church traditions, the values of the kingdom are at odds with some popular church traditions and cultures. Understand that, because in a lot of ways our church, the big C, the church in America, has lost some of its distinctiveness because they've co-opted cultural values. We've got to understand that. So, lots to chew on. This weekend here at Gower Christian, it's Father's Day weekend. Men's breakfast. We'll have men's breakfast Saturday morning at 7 a.m. at our Antioch Fellowship Center. On Sunday, worship at 10:30. Join us online or in person at 10:30 a.m. Monday night, 5 to 7, Food for the Soul. We invite the community to come and enjoy fellowship and food. We're going to be grilling hamburgers and hot dogs, and we'll have fixins to go with it. And the community's invited. 5 to 7. There is no cost. If you want to donate something toward the cost, you may. But please come no matter what, and get to know people from Gower Christian, and spend some time in fellowship with each other. No youth group Sunday night. We're inviting and encouraging families to be together on Father's Day, just as we do on Mother's Day as well. Well, thanks for listening. I know it's a little bit of a ramble here, but 2 important concepts. The nature of our hard trials and our resident alien status. We'll be hearing a lot about that over the next 6 weeks, and I hope you'll join us. Until we meet again online or in person, I bid you peace.